Hi, I'm Alan Bresnick from Light Reading. We're here at SCTE Cable Tech Expo in Denver, and we're speaking to Owen Marmer from Amdocs. Hi, Owen.
Hi there. Hi, Alan.
Let's talk about virtualization and NFV. What kinds of use cases are you seeing? What kind of attraction are you seeing to NFV from cable
we're
operators?
seeing quite a range of use case. I think that still most of the market is focused as the first priority on enterprise type of use cases. How do you combine SD-WAN with different types of enterprise services and provide the service agility around that? And that is definitely sort of the common understanding in the market that would be the most compelling initial use case. But we're also seeing a lot of discussion recently specifically from cable operators around more of residential and consumer type of use cases. How do you virtualize the residential gateway? How do you provide additional value-added services and do all that in a much more agile and virtualized manner?
So it's interesting because we've mostly been hearing about business use cases, not about residential use cases.
Right.
So what's happening on that front?
I think it's much more a matter of priorities. Operators are still struggling or trying to put the initial use cases of NFV out there to deploy an NFV to begin with. And that's where there was a clear decision with most operators to focus on the enterprise side of things. I think this is where there's a much more stronger and compelling use case. And also when you look at most cable operators and most operators in general, they see much more significant growth, much higher revenue potentials around commercial and enterprise type of use cases, where residential is a bit more of a saturated market. But the need is there. The opportunity to optimize and to automate exists across all different applications. There's no doubt about it.
Most cable operators are on some kind of journey towards offering mobile services.
Right.
How can NFV help them do that?
I think that NFV, one of the key benefits of NFV is that it could provide one unified, agnostic, service neutral and vendor neutral orchestration layer. Right. This is where if you add mobile services, whether initially or whether at a later phase, those could be added under the same orchestration level. So it could actually provide the same benefits, but if you use the orchestration layer as a way to combine the benefits and to further integrate different use cases, that could even have greater benefits.
Oren, there's been a lot of momentum in the cable industry around different open platforms, open source platforms, and different organizations. How do you see that playing a role in cable's move to NFV?
I think it plays a major role across the entire industry, and then the cable operators, as being a major part of this market, need to take a role in that. We're very glad to have seen in ONAP, which is the open source initiative we in Amdocs are heavily involved in, and we're one of the creators and initiators of it. To have seen cable operators join, specifically Comcast, Cable Labs, and a few other players are in the process of joining as well. Standardization is has a key role and is a very critical element in making this a success, because we have so many players out there specifically around different VNFs and different applications, and unless we're able to align all of them into one common platform, one common standard, it's going to be challenging for us to scale as an industry.
Right, and this is a big deal because cable's not usually joined the general telecom standards
You're right. If you look at the traditional standards, I2T or IEEE, they've been very much focused on wireline and mobile applications or operators had different set of standards, and cable had a third set of standards. And I think that if we look at ONAP, and by now we already have a representation of probably close to 60% of the worldwide subscriber base, and it's sort of unifying across mobile operators, fixed line operators, as well as cable operators, and I think that by itself is a major step forward for the industry.
So you expect other cable operators to follow Comcast
We definitely hope to see others. Open source is a bit tricky. It's something that is new for all of us in the networking space. And I think that some, are sort of following it from the outside and not necessarily planning to join, but we're definitely actively pursuing and discussing this with most cable operators as well as other service providers that have not joined, and we want to see a much larger representation in ONAP and in other relevant networking standardization activities.
Oren, what do you see as the most significant barriers to cable operators adopting NFV?
I think that, first of all, one of the most significant barriers in general is the organizational impact. NFV is a huge revolution. It's probably the greatest revolution the telecom industry in general has gone through in the last several decades.
You talked about that at our breakfast this morning.
I mentioned it this morning. I'm definitely seeing, I think that the barrier to a large extent is well beyond just technology. It's how do you transform your network operations organizations? How do you change the roles and responsibilities in between network and IT? And I don't think that cable operators are any different than any other operator in that regard. They face the same challenges. With regards to cable operators, and I've mentioned this morning, I actually think that they have an opportunity because of the different architecture, because of the sort of structure that is being imposed by the DOCSIS architecture. They have closer presence to the customers, and that actually could provide a much stronger benefit because you can bring down compute resources and be closer with your virtualized elements to the customer, and as you know, by doing so, better address performance, latency, and other aspects.
It's interesting about the organization, so you can virtualize the devices, but you can't virtualize the people, right?
That is definitely a challenge. I mean, there's always the inertia, right? If folks have done things for decades in a certain way, there has to be a very strong, compelling reason for them to change. And we see a lot of folks that are just sort of sitting on the fence and saying, let's let others do that, go through the first, second, third cycle, fail, and then we'll jump on board. But you know, we do need to create a stronger momentum in the industry, and definitely what I'm constantly calling all service providers is now is the time to start taking some risks, jump on board. We might not have the perfect solution yet, but we're definitely in a situation where we have the technology maturity. We've already proven that we can commercialize significant services and deploy in a very stable manner, you know, quite a few advanced use cases, and we need to simply start moving forward as an industry.
So virtualize now or die?
Virtualize now or be left behind.
Be left behind. Okay, we won't kill them
we
off.
don't want to be too negative.
Right. Oren, what is Amdocs's approach to accelerating NFV adoption?
We have two core elements. We're focusing on what we call Amdocs NFV powered by ONAP. So one critical element is the adoption of ONAP in the open source community and the standardization. The second element is that we focus on the end-to-end service orchestration and NFV orchestration layer, and we sort of have a high focus on creating a vendor-neutral, agnostic, and open orchestration layer. So it's all about creating an ecosystem of partners. We're constantly onboarding and adding more partners and more VNFs to our ecosystem. And we want to enable service providers to accelerate adoption of NFV in general and ONAP specifically, to be able to support any use case out there, and to provide the agility and the flexibility and the ability to accelerate innovation by introducing many different partners and having the capability of offering any application out there in a very flexible and very open manner.
Okay. Well, Oren, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.